Hey everybody, welcome back to the Consumer Warrior Podcast. This podcast is dedicated to helping you with your big debt problems. If you're just dabbling in debt, this isn't the podcast for you. Here we deal with the big debt problems like repossession, debt collection lawsuits, foreclosure, bankruptcy, and all those other horrible financial problems. We're here to help you to help yourself. Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, John Skiba. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about something that's a little bit specific to maybe not everybody that's listening, but that can be very helpful if you're dealing with debt where the debt collector, the debt buyer, the original creditor has actually filed a lawsuit against you and you're trying to figure out what to do as far as how to respond to the lawsuit itself. Now, before we jump into that, I do want to remind everybody that this podcast is sponsored by the Consumer Warrior Project. And this is going to be very important to today's specific episode because I'm going to be talking about how to draft your own answer to a debt collection lawsuit. And we actually have a tutorial there that'll walk you through this, provide you with forms, and make the whole process a lot easier. You can find all of that over at legal.coach. That's the actual website address, legal.coach. Head on over there and learn more about the Consumer Warrior Project and some of the resources we have to help you get out of debt. Now, today's episode, again, is going to be dealing with drafting that answer to the debt collection lawsuit. This is a vital step if you have been sued by a debt collector. Now, when the debt collector, what they'll do is they'll draft a complaint, they'll get a summons, they file it all with the court, and then they have to go out and serve you with it. So process servers come by your house, they've knocked on the door, usually at some weird hour of the day or night, and they drop off the complaint and the summons. Now, in the summons, if you read over it, it's going to give you a very specific time frame for you to file a written response to the complaint. Essentially, the court wants to know, do you admit or deny what it is that this debt collector, this debt buyer, or whoever it is, do you admit or deny what it is that they're saying? Because if you deny it, then we have a lawsuit on our hands here. We have a dispute that the court needs to settle. Now, I want to go over with you a few things that I see people do incorrectly that can cause some real damage to your case. And the reason why I decided to do this episode is most people that get sued by debt collectors, they represent themselves. Over 95% of these cases go to a default, meaning people don't respond to them. And those that do respond to them, less than 1% actually have attorneys. So there are a lot of people out there who are drafting their own responses. And because it's such a vital piece of the lawsuit, I wanted to give you, again, a few tips on things you can do to make sure that you do it correctly. Now, one of the first things I notice is that a lot of people will get sued, they'll draft up the answer, they either come into my office to talk to me about it and want me to review what they've done. And one of the biggest mistakes that I see that people do is they use the answer as their time to kind of tell their side of the story. You know, there's things in there saying, hey, I got this credit card, and then we fell on hard times, we had illness or job loss, or the economy fell apart, whatever it is. They're going into detail as far as why they can't pay. And sometimes they'll go so far as to ask the court to help set up a payment plan or some type of settlement. Now, it's important to know that the court is not there to help you come up with some kind of settlement arrangement or payment plan or anything like that. They don't care. The judge's job is to determine legal liability. Was there an agreement? Did you breach it? Are you liable? If so, how much? That's what the judge's job is there for. They're not there to help the plaintiff collect on this. They're not there to determine whether you can actually afford to pay it. All of those things are going to be left to you and to the opposing counsel. Also, you don't need to put in more detail than is necessary. Like I was saying, what the court wants to know is, do you admit or deny the allegations that are in the complaint? They don't need to know about all the other background story. That's relevant to you. It's relevant to settlement. It's relevant maybe later on in the case, maybe at trial. It's not relevant to the complaint and filing the answer. If you look at the complaint, it should be a bunch of numbered paragraphs with specific allegations in each of those numbered paragraphs. All you need to do is go through and say whether you admit or deny what it is that they're saying. It can be really that simple. I mean, you can say, in response to paragraph 1, I admit what they say, or I deny what they say. Whatever it is that's accurate, that's what you want to respond to. So tip number 1, don't use the answer as your opportunity to tell some big story. It'll hurt you in the end, and it's just not necessary. Number 2 is that you need to answer to the best of your capabilities, but understand, particularly if you're being sued by a junk debt buyer, and that the overwhelming majority of debt collection lawsuits these days are brought by debt buyers. They're not brought by the original creditor. So if I took out a credit card with Chase or with Citi or Wells Fargo, somebody like that, and it goes delinquent, often they'll just package that up and they sell these to debt buyers. Debt buyers with names like Portfolio Recovery Services, Midland Funding, Cavalry SPV, and dozens and dozens of others. They're small debt buying entities in every state. Those are just some of the big national ones. So what you need to do is just respond to specifically what it is that they are asking you. And sometimes people will just admit things that they haven't actually been proven by the debt buyer. So let's say you have a debt buyer case. Let's say it's Midland Funding has sued you, and they're alleging that they are the owner of the account, or that the account was transferred to them or assigned to them, but they're not providing any documents to really support that. They're just alleging that. And I've seen people on a pretty regular basis who will admit that Midland Funding is the owner of the account. I always put it back on my my potential clients that are out there. How do you know that? Other than them saying that, how do you know that? Have they provided you with any specific evidence that demonstrates that they're the actual owner of the account? Because something you're going to be surprised if you litigate cases against debt buyers is how little evidence they actually have that they're the true owners of the account. So unless they've proven it, don't admit it. If they're saying that you owe them a specific dollar amount, you can ask them, how did you calculate that? Don't just admit to something blindly that you don't know as far as how they came up with those facts. You got to be really careful when it comes to admitting or denying it, because you can honestly deny a lot of the things that debt buyers say just because they simply haven't proven it. If a debt buyer tells me that they're the owner of the account, unless they've shown me and proven to me that they are, I'm going to deny that because I simply don't know. If it's something where they're saying that there's $5,700.10 owed, unless I know for sure how they calculated that, if I know what interest rate they used, I'm not going to respond to that. I'm going to say that I'm going to deny it because I don't know how they calculated that, so I'll deny it. So you should always be truthful in what you're responding to at the court. If they're saying, hey, you opened up an account with Citibank and the last four digits were 234, yeah, you should go ahead and admit that if that's accurate. But if there's something in there that's not accurate, that it has not been proven, then you need to go ahead and deny that. Now, so that's the second tip. Last tip, number 3, is be careful if they're asking you for, or if they've put different allegations in the same numbered paragraph. So let's say they have 5 paragraphs, and paragraph number 2 says that that Midland Funding is the owner of the account, and the amount owed is $4,000 even. And I'm just making things up. You need to look at that. That's actually 2 different allegations, and so in response to it, you don't want to just say that you completely denied paragraph number 4, unless you do. But let's say that you agreed to the $4,000 is what was owed on the card at the time it was charged off, but you denied that Midland Funding is the actual owner. It's permissible to say in your answer, in response to paragraph number 2, I deny that Midland Funding is the owner of the account, but I admit that the amount owed is $4,000. And that's just for example. You may not agree with either of those. You may agree with both of them. But you need to be careful when they're putting multiple allegations in one specific paragraph. Because if you just, a blanket, hey, I admit this, there may be things within that paragraph that you don't actually agree with that can cause you some problems down the road. So that's just the 3 tips I give when drafting your own answer to a debt collection lawsuit. It's just to really be careful that what you're responding to, because it's an important document. I've had clients before that have filed their own answers, and they basically just admitted to everything. And if you admit to everything, this lawsuit, it's going to be over real quick. And the reason is because the plaintiff will just go back to the judge and say, Judge, there's really no legal dispute here. The defendant has agreed to everything that we're saying, and then they'll file something called a motion for judgment on the pleadings, and this case will be done before it even begins. So you need to be careful. I mean, 1, you need to be accurate and honest about it, but 2, you need to be careful as far as what you're admitting, because there's probably a lot in there, particularly with cases with junk debt buyers, where you don't know if what they're alleging is true because they haven't proven it, they've just alleged it. So those are 3 tips, again, for how to draft an answer to a debt collection lawsuit. If you want to learn more about how to do this, again, I've put together a very in-depth tutorial. It's an online video tutorial with forms and templates that'll show you how to do this. You can head over to my website at www.legal.coach. That's the entire website, legal.coach. You can go over there and you can see that course as well as a bunch of other courses and templates and things you can download that'll help you in your fight against debt. So that's going to do it for this episode of the podcast. One thing that, since this podcast is new, I wanted to throw out there is that I do have a video version of all of this. If you want to see my face as well as, just have the video version of this, or if you prefer to listen to it on YouTube, I have a YouTube channel. If you go to YouTube and search Consumer Warrior Project, you'll see a list with all the videos that I have, and we have about 100 videos in general that we've been doing even before this podcast was launched. Or if you're just into audio, if you're seeing this over on YouTube, if you go to iTunes, if you go to Stitcher, you can subscribe to the audio version of this, get the same exact content. It's just one has video and one doesn't. So that's going to do it for this episode of the podcast. I appreciate you listening. We will catch you next time.